Hi, good afternoon. This is Lisa Loftus. Jimmy Ratliff here with me today. And today we're going to discuss transitioning from the viewpoint of transitioning from home or an institution into independent living in your own home or a college or something like that.
Right.
So, Jimmy, can you tell me some key things people should be aware of when making this kind of move?
So transition to independent living is a major life change. I mean, it is something that requires a lot of careful consideration, and there's a lot of changes that come with living independently for people who are maybe going out on their own for the first time, or transitioning out from a place where somebody else has maybe made decisions for them about their care or about their schedule or different things like that. So that's some of the stuff we want to talk about today. I think one of the most important things to remember, though, whenever we talk about transitioning is that transitioning is a process. It's not like, oh, I'm living in my own house. So it's not just a singular event. It takes time to kind of go through that and develop the skills and resources that an individual would need to live independently.
Okay. And so I'm sure there's a lot of challenges that people face when they're transitioning in any part of their life. Can you tell me what some of those challenges might be for people facing this type of transition?
Right, so one of the things, like I'd already mentioned, was that people who are transitioning into independent living for the first time, they may have had decisions that have been made for them either by parents or guardians, or if they were in an institutional care facility or something like that, someone else is kind of managing their daily lives. And that type of dependency can make it very difficult for someone who hasn't ever had to make those types of choices move forward and start advocating for themselves and their own needs once they enter the community. Another hurdle that we see a lot is learning to manage just regular daily tasks. Again, if a lot of things are kind of structured and other people are making those decisions, that can be difficult. Things like cooking, cleaning, transportation, and finances, those are all different aspects that you have to look at whenever you're looking to move independently.
Yeah, I remember one time that I had an individual that was getting ready to move out from home. He was graduating from high school, and so he came to us for independent living training for skills help. And he knew that like the house had to be cleaned and you had to pay bills, but sitting down and actually taking the steps were what we ended up working on because he wasn't sure how to navigate all that.
Right.
So, what resources are available to help people navigate this transition successfully?
Well, us, for instance, Dynamic Independence here in Bartlesville, but Centers for Independent Living in general, they're kind of invaluable resources, and we specialize in offering these services like independent living skills training, like peer support, advocacy, those types of things that individuals need to get that external support to help them move forward in their personal lives, especially when it comes to independent living. So you have independent living skills training. These are programs that help individuals develop or relearn skills or refresh their skills that they will need living on their own, things like budgeting or self-advocacy, being able to make phone calls and doing things like that for yourself, finding transportation, making sure those things are in place, and even just your household management. Other things that we look at are things like peer support or mentoring. We generally will call it peer support or peer-to-peer in independent living, and a lot of times that is just connecting you with somebody who has had a similar experience that you have, and being able to relate through those similar experiences and seeing maybe someone else who had successfully navigated the same type of issues or event like transitioning can often bolster somebody's confidence, and it can help to say, okay, well, I know so-and-so and they have done this, and that's a good resource for someone to be able to say, well, I'm trying to do this, but I don't quite understand how this works, or what did you do in this scenario? And you kind of are able to build that kind of type of rapport and really work together to have a lot of your questions answered by somebody who is generally your own age and has experienced things that are very similar to what you're experiencing. And also advocacy. So we talked a little bit about this before in this, and we talk about this a lot because it's one of our core services that we offer. But Centers for Independent Living, like us, we can help individuals advocate for their own rights, and we can also help advocate for them as well if there is issues with getting certain resources or certain things set up, certain types of equipment that might be needed, or if they need home health to come in or something, and they need someone to help them to kind of navigate those waters. We're here to help with that, and finding those resources, whether it be a housing resource or transportation or home health care, like I said, any type of resource like that.
Those kind of supports are really important. I mean, even so much as finding the right transportation. If someone's not able to drive, they might, if they didn't have a physical limitation, they might be able to take a car, but if they do and they have to have a wheelchair, then they might need the kind of transportation, it's bus services that are accessible to individuals with a wheelchair. So those are important things to have.
Yes, absolutely.
And what advice would you give to someone who's considering transitioning from a facility or home into their own independent living situation?
Right. So, again, contact your local Center for Independent Living. If you're in this area, it's us. If you're out of this area, there might be one that's closer to you. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you don't know, there's a good chance that other people haven't known too, and they've asked similar questions, or that we have resources that are available for all the different types of things that you might face against what we specialize in. And look for those supports. You can start building your skills and confidence while living still with your parents or guardians, or if you're still in an institutional care place, you can start by making things about your care known. This is what I want in my care. Start making phone calls and doing things like making your own appointments, or asking questions about, okay, I've got to get a job. What kind of jobs are out there that I'm interested in? Resume building. All these different things are ways that you can start building some of these soft skills that you need to kind of take on the whole idea of independent living one step at a time. And so another thing is just taking on just generally more responsibilities. That promotes independence a lot. Don't always think that, well, I'm just going to rely on mom or dad, or I'm going to rely on everybody else all the time. While we are here to support folks, and you have your exterior supports, the more things that you can do independently by yourself, and taking those steps start to make the whole process much less stressful, because you are able to control the direction of your independent living.
I think that's an important part. I think even as parents or guardians or caregivers or whatever, can help an individual who is seeking to live more independently on their own. They can help by encouraging that young person to start helping more, to give them a bank book or one of those prepaid cards or whatever, where they have to manage their own money. That always is really helpful, to start helping them to learn those things. Just because they have a disability doesn't mean they can't do them. I mean, I know with my own kids, they would always sit in the kitchen and watch me cook, and they learned things from that, and I did the same way. That's how I learned from my parents. And so I think that is something that is important across the board, whether somebody has a disability or not. If they have somebody who is letting them have a hands-on experience with it, that's going to be helpful to them in their future.
Absolutely, yes.
So having more confidence can make the transition less stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And what examples of living skills can someone use to build their confidence?
So I think we'll start by saying that it's really important to remember that living independently is more than just having your own house or your own apartment.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's all these little things that go into it: housing, food, transportation, employment, healthcare needs, outside support, and money to pay for it all, and so on. So taking on so much, it can really seem to be overwhelming. And this is where we talked about a little bit ago about breaking those down into those smaller steps that are just kind of easier. You can create a goal, you can you find a skill that you need to learn and focus on that and master that, and then move on to the next thing. And as you start to add all these things together, then you move closer steps to that independent living. And again, having that the more confidence that you have makes it much less stressful in the long run. So breaking down the big items into smaller, more manageable parts make a big difference. So let's talk about, let's start with self-advocacy. So an individual needs to learn how to identify their needs and be able to articulate those. So if you have a need because of a disability, or you have just a need in general that you might need some support on, or a skill that you feel like you need to learn, or a skill that is crucial that you learn, you need to be able to identify that. Tell somebody about that. Talk to your IL specialist or your peer support person at a center for independent living, or your parents or your doctor or whoever, and say, this is something that I feel like I need, and I really want to learn how to do this, or I want to be able to facilitate doing this myself, and can you help me get to that point? And then a lot of times with just a little bit of guidance, or just hearing a success story from someone, or like you said, hands-on, somebody gives you the opportunity to be there and work kind of hand in hand with them to learn a skill or to build a skill. That's the catalyst that is really the cornerstone to self-advocacy. Other things in self-advocacy might be like making your medical appointments, talking to your doctors, filling out housing applications, or interactions with things like service providers, putting a voice to your needs, identifying your medical, housing, and benefit needs, advocating for appropriate medical equipment assistive technologies is especially important if maybe you have a mobility issue, or if you have some sort of other disability that you might need some additional equipment for. How is that going to play in? You mentioned finding transportation that might have an accessible lift on it if someone is using a wheelchair, or that they would have issues going up and down, steps, navigating up and down steps that way. Knowing about your health and educating yourself about that. Talk to your doctors and find out just exactly what your healthcare needs are and what you can do as an individual to make sure that you're doing the right things to try to keep yourself healthy, or to ask the right questions if something isn't quite right. If you go, I usually feel pretty good in this, but now I feel a different way, or I feel like that my needs are changing. Be able to talk to your healthcare provider about that. Making phone calls, writing emails, and resolving even personal situations, and then arranging for your own transportation. Those are all ways that you can advocate for yourself, and they're all small ways that you can accomplish that. But again, we're building onto that bigger picture. We're building into that independence.
Right, and those are even larger steps, because there's supports that can be put in place. For instance, if someone has a delayed speech, or they're even someone who is nonverbal, so they don't speak, but they want to be living independently, they probably have already used something like a storyboard or something to voice their feelings, or they may use sign language, or they may, there's all different ways of communication.
Yes.
So being able to be able to do that effectively, to let others know what your needs are, to get those needs met, those are supports that can be put in place. There's apps on phones to remind you of appointments, so that you don't have to have someone else there to remind you. There's a lot of different little things that can even be put into place, and I think that's something that is important for our viewers to know, because there really isn't anyone who couldn't live more independently in some way.
Right.
Even within a home with a guardian, or parent, there's still ways that you can live more independently, and there's more things that you can do for yourself. And we always want to encourage the self-advocacy and the independent living, because none of us know how long we're going to be here, or our parents are going to be here, whatever. So we want to be prepared to be able to do things on our own. Leaves us feeling less helpless.
Absolutely, yeah.
So besides self-advocacy, let's talk a little bit about attendant management.
Okay, so attendant management is kind of, it may be necessary and it may not be necessary, just depending on if you have various types of health concerns or needs. So attendant management is often for individuals who require personal care, maybe personal care assistance in their home, or if they have someone who comes in and there's the consumer-directed, help me with the term.
Consumer-directed care.
Consumer-directed care, where you have an individual who maybe just needs a little assistance sometimes. They may want someone to come in and kind of help clean up for them, or they may have someone come in and help meal prep or do some things like that, and check on their medications and make sure that they're just generally doing well. But by and large, they live independently on their own, and we see this quite often in folks who are older. We see this type of thing. And there's attendant management would be if you have someone who's coming into your home who is providing a service for you. You want to be able to communicate your needs and what you want, but you also want to be able to do that respectfully, and you want to set appropriate boundaries. You don't really want to leave much open for interpretation with that, because people will take liberties sometimes if you just kind of leave it out in the open there, and that leads to people doing things that you may not want them to do in your home. They may not, if you want something to be cleaned a certain way, or you want something, you have a certain schedule that you want to meet, you're directing that care, so you need to be able to convey that and say, this is what I want, this is how I want this done, but you got to be respectful about it. Also, understanding the difference between assertive and aggressive communication. You can be assertive and say, this is my home, and this is how I would like this to be done, and I like to have it this way, and at this schedule. And then, but you don't want to be aggressive. You don't want to come off as angry or mean, or that it just creates an air of frustration. Bossy. And it makes it more difficult for everyone who's involved in the situation, because when people feel like that there's aggression, they will often mess up on what they're doing because they're kind of on pins and needles. And then whoever is having the care provided to them, so the individual who's living independently at that point, they begin to get frustrated because things aren't going the way that they want them to go. And if you can just communicate effectively and respectfully, it really does go a long way in making those options for someone coming into your home to assist much easier. And then sometimes with that type of care, people have to be hired with that type of consumer care. The consumer would hire somebody to come in, even if, say, their insurance was paying for that. And then those people have to be trained coming in, because they don't know how you like your house. They don't know. They just know that they're there to make sure that you're doing okay, and they're there to clean. But they don't know what your daily routine is. They don't know, how you like things done. So you have to be able to communicate that. And then you also have to be able to supervise those individuals who are coming into your home. But you have to do it in such a way to where you're not being overbearing, and you're conveying your point and how you want things, but you're not being, the term you use, bossy.
Yeah, you want to be respectful.
Yes.
It's kind of it's a relationship. And if you are too overbearing or bossy, disrespectful, and that person maybe decides they don't want to work for you anymore, and if that becomes a pattern, then you become known as a difficult patient, or someone difficult, a difficult consumer. That's the more proper term. And when that happens, then people don't want to work for you. and then you're going to have a harder time finding somebody to come in. So yeah, we definitely want to. That I think is a key piece of something that is needs to be instilled in someone who is going to be a consumer directed care. That's something that they're going to need.
Absolutely.
So we've done self-advocacy and attainment management. How about household management?
So household management, this is exactly like it sounds. You're managing your household, so you want to make sure that your household is clean and safe and, organized as much as it can be. I mean, we all have things, but organized environment, and you kind of want some key skills to have in place for that, and those will be things like cooking or meal planning. That can be something. Making sure that things are organized in your kitchen or in your home so you can find those types of things. Making sure that, again, once you've cooked a meal, once you've done that, then everything's cleaned up and washed and, put away. How to clean various items in the home. I mean, you get, especially maybe a young adult who's moving out for their first time from their parents, things like laundry, things like doing the dishes, things that a lot of maybe adults just kind of take for granted, that, oh, we just know this, and because we all have to learn somewhere. And I think that's something to always keep in mind, making sure the trash goes out when it's supposed to, so that it keeps your area clean, and also maintaining your household appliances, making sure that, clothing is going from the washer to the dryer and not sitting for a long time, or that dishes aren't stacking up, or these types of things. So there's a lot of just small things that you can do there in the household management that continues to build that skill.
Right. Okay, and then this is a biggie: financial management.
Right. So so there's a couple of ways that this can go. There are individuals who sometimes will prefer not to manage their own finances. It's something that they don't want to have to deal with, and maybe sometimes then it's something that they are not able to deal with. And so if that is the case, there are payees that are out there, and these would be individuals who would be contracted with, and they would handle the money coming in and out, make sure bills were paid in a timely manner, things of that nature. So that's one option. But most generally in independent living, people want to manage their own finances, and if they're able to, I believe they should. A key component to that is creating a budget, and it's something that we do with nearly every consumer who does an independent living plan who comes in to Dynamic Independence. And that is, you sit down and you go, okay, what money do you have? You identify the income resources they have. Are they retired? Are they getting Social Security? Do they have disability? Are they getting Social Security disability? Do they have some retirement that's coming from someplace else? And you find out what all of these different avenues of income that they have, and you put those down, and you say, okay, now we've got rent, we've got the car payment, we've got the food for the month, we've got our utility bills, we have insurance for the car, whatever your situation is, all the bills that you have, and you take those and those expenses, and you create this budget where you say, okay, we have this much income, this much expenses. What are we taking out of what? How much is left over? What are we going to do with that money? Is there enough to pay for all this stuff that we want or that we have? And if there's not, what changes do we need to make? Or is there some supplemental income that we can get somewhere? So creating that budget is the cornerstone to that, because it lets you identify what money and resources that you have on hand, how much money that you're spending each month that's going to go out, and then changes that you might need to make that budgetary process work.
I think one of the things that's important before you move on is, with a budget, a lot of times we might get individuals that come to us and they are still living at home.
Yes.
They may even have an income ready, but they haven't found the apartment they're going to live in yet. So they don't know what their rent's going to be there, or their utilities amounts are going to be, that kind of thing. So in that kind of case, what would be, we would set up an independent living plan, and we would create that budget. It would be kind of like a mock budget.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would go by what's the average cost for
Right.
rent in the area that the individual is looking to live, and the average cost for utilities if it's not going to include utilities with it,
Right.
and break that down and do kind of a mock lab with it be the maximum amount that that it
Would likely
could cost, look like, or the least amount. This is the max amount that you have that you can afford, so that they kind of have an idea if they're going to need to find another source of income,
Mm-hmm.
if that's possible, and how much that would be, so that they can plan before they move out. And this is very helpful, so that way that they don't get out and say, "Oh, I make $1,200 a month. I'm going to be able to pay all the bills." And then when they get out, they're like, "Okay, well, $800 of that is just been ate up for my rent
Mm-hmm.
and utilities, and that leaves me, $400
Yeah.
for the rest of everything else." So I think that's a really helpful thing for them to do, is the budgeting and the learning to stick to that budget, and they can practice that before they get into their own place and are living independently.
Right. If they're living still, say, home with mom and dad, and they're getting ready to graduate and they're going to move independently out on their own at that point. You had mentioned this earlier, providing maybe like a debit card or providing something like that. But once you get to a certain level in your independence there, if you want to figure out what that's like, let's say we're going to take this amount of money that you're getting every month, and let's put it aside like you were paying those bills. It gives an idea about how that process works, and that also kind of gives you a little bit of extra there whenever you get out and start, because you may have to pay for things like having your utilities turned on or connect fee. Those can be anywhere from $150 to $500 or $600 sometimes just to connect utilities in places.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all little snippets of things that you kind of have to watch out for whenever you're looking to managing your finances. Other things like opening and managing your bank accounts, understanding how paying your bills work. A lot of that stuff is done online now. So is that something that you're comfortable with? Is that something you want to learn about? Is it something that you need assistance from someone else to help you with? And then if there's any kind of accumulated debt. So if you have bought things on credit cards like a lot of us have, or if there's some other outstanding debt that you have, maybe a traffic ticket, or maybe you owe somebody some money, how do you manage that debt and kind of work towards making sure that money in the future will go toward the bills and the things that need to be paid up front. So a lot of different parts to financial management, but again, addressing those one at a time in those smaller areas will build on that.
Another area would be in transportation. What kind of skills would be needed to get reliable transportation? What kind of things do you need to navigate that?
Sure. So especially if you're using things like public transportation, you'll want to know where the nearest bus stop is. You'll want to know is this transportation if you're in need of maybe a wheelchair lift or some other accessible lift. Make sure that transportation has that. If you're using something that's like an Uber or some other private service like that, you may not have some of those accessibility features, so that's always something to keep in mind. Using paratransit services, again, things that are accessible for individuals who use mobility equipment, that you always want to make sure that is in place before you commit to something like that, because you don't want to say, okay, I want you to pick me up at my house at 7 o'clock, and you get there and then they can't accommodate what you need. So that's, again, one of those things. Ask the questions up front. because it's the way that we learn. And then kind of just having an overview and understanding what all the different types of options for transportation are in the area. Because in today's world, you've got Lyfts and Ubers and taxis and buses and all kinds of different options. So it's good to familiarize yourself with all of those different types of things and understand the services that they offer.
Now, in socialization and community engagement, most of us have our people, our tribe, whether it's family, friends, whatever. But how you go about building connections or a support network to encourage individuals into this?
I think one of these things is getting kind of into a peer support group. We see that quite a bit. Here we usually do one-on-one peer support here, but that socialization is part of that peer support at that point. And again, having someone who understands where you're coming from and who have navigated similar things. You can engage in community activities. Maybe you're interested in being on a board of directors, and let's say you're interested in being on a board of directors, you have a disability. Well, guess what? 51% of the Dynamic Independence Board of Directors have to have some form of a disability. Also with employees here. Just because you have a disability doesn't mean that you are excluded from doing those things. The whole idea of independent living is inclusion into the community and being able to rely on yourself more than you do others. But sometimes we need that socialization and that community engagement. And so look at things like going to church, or maybe you join the Kiwanis Club, or maybe you take some class in something that you're interested in, that maybe Tri-County Tech's offering some class or something that you're interested in, and it's a skill that you want to learn or something. Then those types of options are there. You can always look for building new relationships. Having a disability does not limit you from getting out and being a part of the community and engaging with other people. So you might want to reconnect with old friends, even build new relationships when you get out there. And then look at things like your libraries and your community centers. That's a great place to go, where there's a lot of information. It's a social hub for people. Bartlesville has a lot of social events that go on here. And the more comfortable that you are in social situations and community engagement, the easier it is to be able to navigate conversations with individuals, to be able to ask those questions that we had talked about, and to just bolster your confidence in things and to move forward. And so it really is, there's a lot of opportunities out there, and I highly encourage people to be involved in their community and to socialize whenever they can.
And then this one's a biggie. It's something I feel like it's really important for everyone, and that's safety and emergency preparedness.
Right. So individuals need to be prepared for unexpected events. If you've been around in Oklahoma at any time over the last week, tornadoes and severe storms and wind damage and all kinds of things have been going on. And so look at things like practicing safety routines. If you are somebody who especially have some sort of a mobility limitation, then you might need to look at practicing certain types of routines or a certain path that you might travel, even if it's just getting out of the house because of a fire, or if you've got to evacuate or something like that, where you can navigate more easily. Make sure that barriers and things like that are out of the way so that you have clear paths. Look for things like things that might cause fall hazards or something like that. What do you do if there's a tornado? Do you have a safe room or cellar in your home? If you don't, is there a community place you go to? Is there time to get there? What is the safest area in your home? So those are things to identify. And then have an emergency contact list and be able to communicate with not only those emergency contacts that you have, but if you engage with emergency response personnel because of some sort of natural disaster or other event, you want to be able to communicate with those first responders. And depending on, if you have, like you said, you may use sign language, or there may be other ways that people communicate. I think that if there is first responders are responding, it's one of the most important things to be able to communicate. And sometimes we get caught up in the moment and may react in a certain way that might not be the most optimal. So come and talk to your IL specialist, like us here at Dynamic Independence. Talk to your emergency responder personnel and say, give them a call and say, look, I just want to let you know that I live at this address. I have a disability, and if there was a severe storm, this is the place I go in my house if I'm trying to be safe. So, there's a lot of different little things that you can do to advocate for yourself, even
Right.
in that emergency preparedness. And you cannot be too prepared for an emergency.
Absolutely not. So, also we can make, and you can even get the fire department to help with this, monitoring smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, making sure you have a fire extinguisher for putting out small fires.
Yes.
And that you know how to use it.
Right.
Don't just go out to the store, because you can buy them in the Walmart. You don't just go buy one and stick it in the house. Actually, I won't say who. I know someone who actually did that. And
It was me, wasn't it?
No.
Okay. No, I'm kidding.
No, I won't put you under the bus. No, but this person, they were being very
Yes.
prepared when they got their first apartment,
Mm-hmm.
and went and got the fire extinguisher and everything, but they actually needed to use it the first time. Did not have any clue.
Yeah.
Didn't know how to get it to
Didn't know the pulling the pin
start.
and sweeping at the bottom
Yeah.
of the fire.
So it was a laugh. It's a laugh now. It was very embarrassing when they had a first issue, but now we laugh about it. But it is something that you need to know ahead of time.
Right.
So, or just like you said, understanding how to stay safe during extreme weather. Where do you go? Do you have a radio, weather radio, so that if the power goes out, do you have flashlights? Do you have candles? Those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those are very important, and always draw upon on resources, especially.
Absolutely.
So can you elaborate once more on the role of peer support in this process?
So so just going back to that just briefly here. Again, peer support is great because you have somebody who has gone through something similar that you have, so they really do understand where you come from, and they're probably your biggest ally in this whole transitioning into independent living. They've already been through it a lot of times, or they're going through something similar, just like that you are at the moment, and it really does allow the sharing of experiences and tips and how challenges are overcome. And it also helps and this is kind of back to some of the safety stuff and being involved in the community. It provides some guidance on navigating some of these community resources that are out there. So you might say, well, how do you prepare for an emergency? What do you do if there's something that's going on like that? Or what other resources do you know about that I don't know about? And it just kind of it reinforces that idea that independent living is achievable for everyone, even if the experience of living independently is brand new to you.
So as always, our goal is to help people be set up for success, not failure. So remember, transitioning to independent living is a journey, and there will always be challenges along the way. With the right support and resources, we believe that anyone can achieve their goals and live a fulfilling life in the community. So to that end, if you have any questions, if it's something that you're interested in looking into for yourself or for a loved one maybe that is getting ready to make that journey out onto their own, just please give us a call here at 918-335-1314, or you can shoot us an email at ALOFTIS at DYNIND or JRATLIFF at DYNIND.org. Or you can come by our office at 1110 Southeast Frank Phillips from 9 to 4 Monday through Friday. We're always here to answer any questions and give any help wherever we may. So we look forward to meeting you and have a great week.
We'll see you next time.